Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is just a spontaneous one-off, so this is not part of a series or whatever. Just I happen to be playing through Clockwork Empires' latest revision. So in this case, uh, revision 42, which was released about a week and a half ago, was recently hotfixed up or revised up to 42A. So there are, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of really big changes, just a bunch of little ones and all the usual bug fixes. Mainly, though, I just wanted to show off my colony and maybe explain or talk about some uh, issues that arise from problems of scale once you get a colony up to this size. So I've been playing this one for a little bit now, quite some time. It's up to 74 colonists, and it is day 44. The biome is the jungle biome in this case. So I started off with the big colony you can see here in the middle. It wasn't always as big. And then I expanded, so we'll call that Site A. Then I expanded to Site B, which was actually this one up here, not the one in the middle. Because I really needed, this is a hematite mine. There was a hematite node and a survey marker up here. And I really needed hematite at the time. So I built a mine shaft up here. And then a stockpile, and then barracks and some places to sleep. And then just to make things easier, halfway between them I made a site C. So here's another, it's just another lower class workhouse and another barracks and another stockpile. Yeah, so things are going along fairly well. I mean, there's a huge bandit encampment down here, which has kind of become a problem. Even though the bandits no longer attack me. See one of my colonists here running away. I had a couple of bandit defectors. You get the notification that says so-and-so has decided to leave a life of banditry and wants to join your colony. If you accept them, they will start running toward your colony from their former camp. Normally, when it's just one of these tents, or two or whatever, there are only 3 or 4 other bandits. They can survive the gunfire and they'll run all the way to town. However, because this is some huge blob of like 24 bandits or something, the 2 bandit defectors who tried to defect were immediately killed. Now the problem for me is that the game considers them bandits, or considers the defecting bandits colonists. So my other colonists will try to retrieve their bodies for burial. And you can see here I have a constant stream of colonists trying to approach the campsite. But once they get close enough to the giant mob of bandits, they run away and flee back to civilization. So there are perpetually a few colonists trying to get in at those bodies, and it's just clogging up the job list here. Oh yes, the job list is humongous. Just a bunch of, I mean, it's running pretty smoothly, right? But I think they're like the tail ends of, I have a whole bunch of these finished production jobs, even though I don't have a lot of things being produced. I think that's just some cleanup stuff that gets entered in and the job gets done, and it just doesn't get cleaned off the list. A whole bunch of these jobs are also farming jobs, and let me talk to you about farms for just a second. So in revision 42, the farming system was changed to allow for more detail in your crops, and in fact I go into this in much more detail in my proper Alpha 42 series, which directly preceded this. And what are my soldiers shooting at? Oh, I'm being invaded by one hostile foreigner. Well, that was quick. Yeah, so that's another thing. You'll notice all my soldiers are in one giant red blob, which is pretty cool. They can overwhelm anything. However, that's not quite what I'd hoped they'd be. See, I put a barracks here, a barracks here, and a barracks here, hoping they would hang out there. The problem is soldiers really like hanging out with each other. In fact, they give each other a morale bonus. So over time, the soldiers that aren't close to other soldiers will run back to town because they have low morale until they find another soldier. And the end result of all of this is that the soldiers tend to glom up into one huge red army. So, well, it's a little bit inconvenient, but it's not bad. I mean, but it does mean my little outposts are kind of undefended. Well, let's take a look at what I hear. I have a fully upgraded metalworks. Now you'll notice it has a very ugly roof, or in fact no roof. So this is a very old bug, which when you stick modules that stick out through the walls, like these different forges and kilns, if you stick too many of them at the corner of a building, the building renderer will freak out and won't know where to put the roof. And oh, one of my colonists is actually an aristocrat. Well, Zora. Zora is a static to find out there or the other. Well, okay, that's nice for Zora. Anyway, so the reason this building looks so ugly, like I knew this would happen, and if I'd been planning a little more carefully, maybe I would have made this building very long and narrow without too many corners, so that I could stick more modules on there. To build this, to upgrade everything, I eventually had to use up space on the walls and in the corners, which made the building graphics break. So, very old bug. It only affects the way buildings look, doesn't affect how they function. It's just a little bit annoying. Just gonna ask for the usual number of colonists. Now we're up to 78. I even managed to build an upper class house. Once you get to 30 colonists, I believe, the motherland will send you a bar of gold. That is literally the only gold I've been able to find so far. And in fact, okay, I'm clicking away quite quickly. But if you look around here, the area around my colony is very, very poor in terms of minerals. Haven't been able to find coal, no gold. Even the closest hematite node is way the heck up here. Even stone was super rare. This was the closest deposit of stone. So, actually my lack of stone hampered my colony for a while. Anyway, with a commemorative bar of gold, I was able to build one upper class bed. I've had plenty of other materials. In the meantime, I've built a sizable number of middle class beds, and there are lower class beds every single place I can cram them. In different buildings, different locations. I still don't think I have enough beds because they're always constantly full. Well, I guess, whatever, it's a problem you'll encounter with a large colony. Now then, you'll notice I have quite a large number of corn plants. I have somewhere between 90 and 100 corn plants. And I have at least a couple of work crews set to do nothing but farm. So here's Ambrose Robbins' work crew. And I have all filters disabled except for farming. And I believe I have two crews dedicated to doing nothing but farming. Plus, every other crew has farming enabled. So when they're not busy doing their designated workshop job, like making bricks in the kiln or making planks at the workshop, so whenever they're free, they also go farm, which is why like 3/4 of my colony at any time is farming. So with my current population, this is about as many plants as I can tend to without some spoilage. I mean, there's a little bit of spoilage here and there. But this is about the maximum number of plants my colony can handle. And you can see there's corn is constantly grown and harvested and turned into corn stew, or in fact just regular stew here in the kitchen. And the kitchen crew is set to do nothing but cook at all times. So Amon Steel Robbins cooks. They literally do nothing. They're not even allowed to haul. And for simplicity's sake, I've set them to only make stew. So I could have had them make maize chowder, or because there are some random bits of beetle meat and stuff lying around, I could have queued up some beetle steak or cooked dodo. But I find the food pipeline actually works much better if you just give it one task. So I've just because stew can accept any ingredient at all, I've just said always make stew, always make generic stew. And so the script doesn't have to, or the AI doesn't have to decide, oh dear, someone's been shot to death. Several people, oh, who are these? These must be the Stalmarkians. We've always been at war with the Stalmark. So, Lost some soldiers. This will do for now. Let's replenish their ranks. As you can see, it's been quite important for me to maintain military strength. Partly because it's in the jungle, but also partly because there have been the local fauna attacks. So there have been beetle stampedes, as well as deathworms, and also hostile nations, hostile national armies. So we'll wait for this autosave to finish up. So what I will say is that my 90 to 100 maize plants are not quite enough to feed my colony. And what I seem to be doing, every time I have the prestige favor available, I'm requesting food. Now every time you request a food drop, it gives you, the empire will give you half your colony's population in food. So I've got 75 colonists, so they'll give me like 35 food. And that's, bread and sausages. Here we go. Food drop incoming. I hope nobody gets hit by the crate, like Apollo Bronze Sander. Okay, so 37 food items. That is going to get eaten in like an instant. Look at all these people, hungry people swarming in to eat an entire bucket of sausages. That's because they're all hungry. On top of the maximum production of corn, or stew, which gets eaten immediately, there are enough hungry people that they're actually eating raw corn, and I've had a couple people starve. So the way farms are balanced right now, it's very difficult to sustain just on farming, but there's no other reliable source of meat. Well, I guess there's this snail here. Now, one thing I've noticed, so there are other crops available, and maize is more or less identical to pumpkin in the other biome, in that it's that medium crop. I tried growing chili peppers, but they grow so quickly that even with all this farming strength and dedicated farming crews and stuff, it actually spoils in the field. I would say 75% of the chili crop spoils in the field before anyone can harvest it to make food. In fact, the developers know about this, and they're actually turning down the growth rate of chilies and cabbages, which had the same spoilage problem as chilies, for future patches. So they're on that. Yeah, so this is my very, very busy colony. So this is what 42.8 looks like. There's not a lot of new stuff to report. Many bugs were fixed. When you kill a bandit now, his stuff is by default... Oh, let's see if this happens again. By default, a bandit's stuff is marked as not something your colony will want to grab. You actually have to enable it. So that means your colonists won't try to wander into bandit camps to retrieve things and then die. Okay, let's see. A bandit wishes to defect. Ignatius dog. Oh, well, that's not too bad. He should survive the long walk to the colony, no problem. I was concerned he was going to try and approach the colony from the... Where did I leave my colony? I was concerned he was going to try and approach the colony from that cluster of 24 tents, in which case I suspect he would just die immediately. Yeah, so that's how the colony's doing. Aside from the food problem, it's going pretty well. I haven't had any game-stopping bugs. There are a couple of script errors popping up here and there, nothing big. There have been no production hang-ups. The metalworks is working fine. I've got a ton of resources. I've actually built a chemist's. That was the last thing I built here. The fancy roof. Although, I can't actually produce anything that can be made in the chemist's workshop. I don't have a source of sulfur. Actually, sulfur fertilizer doesn't do anything. I could make sulfur tonic if I found sulfur, which I haven't. So I haven't assigned any work crews here. I can't make laudanum until I both grow opium and make moonshine, which neither of which I can do. I literally cannot farm any other plants. They would spoil in the field. There's just not enough work. I think there's an issue with the scaling. As you get more people, they'll need more to eat. And as you plant more crops, they'll need more people to tend them. So I think the number of people that require, as you increase the number of plants, the number of workers it requires increases faster than the number of, what am I trying to say here? The number of available workers? Yeah, the need for work grows at a pace that outstrips the actual number of workers. So there's a certain equilibrium point past which you'll get all sorts of spoilage, which I think is where I am now. So once you get to about 76 colonists, the rate at which people eat food, that's what I'm trying to say, it exceeds the colony's ability to grow food. Yeah, you can see all that corn we harvested, it is literally gone in a day. No food lasts more than a day now. Oh, I did find... Oh, good. Here's one stone block the colony overlooked. Otherwise, the colony's doing pretty well. I mean, at this point, I could consider building a lab or maybe a naturalist's office, both of which are kind of extraneous. The naturalist's office will let me create a naturalist who will explore mineral nodes. However, this is a very, very mineral poor area. Nothing for him or her to explore. Or the very closest ones, which are like out here, have already been explored by my earlier naturalists. And there's not really any point in building a lab because I don't have any artifacts, didn't dig up any fishy idols or obelisk seals or anything for the scientist to research. I'd consider building a lab if I do dig one of those up, but those appear at random. Anyway, so it's just me showing off my Revision 42A jungle colony. And I'm thinking about sending in my many redcoats. Where did that bandit camp go? Ah, here we go. Sending in my many redcoats to attack this this thorn in my side. Yeah, I think I'll do that now. If nothing else, it will. I've already got too many mouths to feed, so I'm thinking this will help lessen the food burden on my colony. All right, hop to it, soldiers. Please all move together. Maybe I should probably expand the graveyard. I'll put a big new graveyard out here. No reason. I just have my existing graveyard is very full. And although I had to build my first few weapons, I was later able to scavenge more than enough weapons for my entire army from the fallen bodies of bandits and foreign national armies. Well, this is a disappointment. Oh, there we go. I was going to say there appear not to be any bandits here. Go get him, loyal soldiers of the Empire. Wow, this camp is largely deserted. That was a bit of an anticlimax. Well, I guess that's cool. Oh, there's another one in here. Oh, there's fighting going on. See this area here, by the way, what looks like a dry lake bed? These used to be covered in this white fungus. I've stripped it completely all the way to the ground because I was just ravenously hunting for any food I could find. I'm going to clear out this other little sub-camp here, and then I'm going to send in my colonists to loot those tents. Should be all sorts of goodies. Now the thing about injuries is that any injury someone takes now will be a lingering and permanent one because I have no ability to make sulfur tonic for reasons mentioned earlier, or laudanum. They'll just have to be replaced. Anyway, we're sweeping through the bandits, no problem. Which means my workers can finally get at those bandit corpses and bury them. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't disintegrated down to bones yet. So that's pretty much that. I think I've covered everything. That's what 42A is looking at. Now for the most satisfying part. Huh. So earlier I had what a bad time for an autosave. One feature of this game now is the ability to forbid items or claim items. So if bandits have stolen a thing from your colony and taken it back to the bandit camp, it used to be that your colonists would try to walk into the bandit camp to pick up that thing and bring it back to the stockpile, which would inevitably lead to them being dead. And then someone else from your colony would try to go to the bandit camp to retrieve their corpse and bury it, and they would also that's sort of a death conga line. A temporary workaround for that was, solution was the ability to forbid items. I forbade some items in here actually, because I didn't want my colonists walking in here. But now I am going to claim all of these items, making them legitimate targets for my colonists to scavenge, and I am going to forage. So there we go. I've secured this area for my colonists, and now that it's nightfall and there are no bandits to fight, I guess all the soldiers are walking home. Now my rally markers are still here, so as soon as they've fulfilled whatever desire is taking them back home, probably the desire to eat and sleep, I will have a stream of colonists coming out here to forage. And as you can see, I have a butt ton of burial duties and forage jobs in the job menu. Okay, well, thanks for checking in on this one. I hear Alpha 42B is right around the corner, and there have been some further stockpile refinements and crop tweaks, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. If you're interested in the experimental version versus what's available on the stable branch, the experimental version is actually freely available to anyone who has purchased the game on Steam. By default, you're subscribed to the stable version, which is the whole number versions, version 41, 42, 43. The experimental ones are the ones with letters in between those, so 41A, 41B, 41C, then 42. And this one is 42A. And those are the experimental builds that are often kind of broken, or they're floated as proof of concepts or tests for new mechanics. And yeah, they're not balanced, and they're often not stable, but they're pretty cool. So if you want to see what's coming up. And then when the game jumps ahead to a new version, all the improvements and refinements are compiled into each stable release. Let's take the usual number of... Yes, so... I'm now on an experimental revision, and somebody just died. I'm not quite sure how. Gunfire? Must be bandit skirmishing here. Yes, so if you're interested in trying out the experimental version, and you can freely switch between them as well in your Steam installation, just go to the game properties of the Clockwork Empires entry in your Steam library. If you go to the properties menu, there's a drop-down menu where you can select which branch you want to be on, stable or experimental. Just know what you're getting into. The experimental version is often buggier, but the newer fixes and things are in it as well. And as always, I'm going to take a giant shipment of food. Yep, 39 whatever units of food. Okay, thanks very much for watching this. My name is Alfred. The game's Clockwork Empires, being developed by Gaslamp Games. Available on Steam. It's early access. It's not done. Everything is subject to change, but I think it's on the right track. Okay, have a good one.